Alright guys, this Chatterbox Reviews, coming at you guys with The Crossing, Season 1, Episode 4, Review. Alright, so another good episode of The Crossing this week. I really enjoyed it. I thought last episode was a little bit better. Of course, the pilot is still at the top. I still don't think, anything, these 3 episodes, I don't think have come close to it. But of course, that's expected, right? They put a lot of work into the pilot, and focus a lot of stuff on it. We're introduced to a lot of things, right? So that one's going to be big, and that one was big. So I thought like they did really well with that one, and that's what has really propelled this series into being, what it is, and being, a really, really good show. And I keep saying I think it has a lot of potential, and I think that pilot showed exactly how much potential and how much momentum that they have, going forward, and what they can do with this show, right? So yeah, anyways, again, yeah, like I said, basically all the questions that we have been asking, that were raised last episode were answered in this one. So I really appreciate that they're, going through here and answering this stuff. The story with Hannah, that ended kind of a little bit quickly, to me at least. I thought it would go on a little bit longer, and it might, right? We don't know where exactly it's going to go, but that was kind of handled with pretty quickly. So that was, one of the questions. Another one was, Reese taking Jude's son, right? That was the big cliffhanger. So it seems that the show is doing a good job of that, of kind of addressing those questions that they raised in the last episode in the current episode, right? And kind of give us those right away, and then of course create a new set for next week, right? That's what keeps people tuning in. So anyways, I'll go over a quick recap here for this episode, and then of course rating favorite character and some more overall thoughts towards the end of the video. So I also just want to say this one will be, I think it'll be a day late. Right now it is Wednesday. So right now it's a day late, but it may actually be 2 days by the time it's, uploaded and everything. So do apologize for that. This week has been really, really busy for me. I've had, usually, saying this is, not a big deal, but, I've had kind of a show a day that I'm trying to review here. And with The Crossing and The Turn on Monday nights, right, it makes it a little bit difficult there. But so far, I really like both shows, and I want to keep, watching them, keep reviewing them. So that's the goal here. And Wednesday is the goal going forward. And I also have the season 5 premiere that was on last night, that I'm going to do my review for tomorrow. So yeah, just a really busy week here. But really, I really appreciate the support on those videos. And that's, what really, really inspires me to, keep making the reviews and everything like that. So really, really appreciate that. But anyways, let's get into the recap for this episode. It should be pretty quick. It's not too long. I did tend to, I kind of thought that there were some throwaway scenes in this one, unlike maybe last episode, for example. But yeah, so a lot of stuff still happened, don't get me wrong. So Jude races to find Oliver, right? So we start, basically right where we left off, which I appreciate. I like that. So Reese calls him on his phone, and he says, "Do not touch him," right? That's like the first thing he says to her, of course. And I felt like Steve Zahn did a really, really good job in this episode. I felt like I really felt like it was a real situation where he lost his actual son. I really felt like he did a great job in this episode with that. Honestly, like with everything, I think, he did a really good job with everything. But that in specific, I really, really, is really believable, and I feel like he did a great job with that. So I just want to, acknowledge that. So then she tells him that she will trade his son for her daughter, an equal trade, she says. And this was kind of foreseeable. I could see this totally playing out, right? Right when Oliver was gone, I'm like, okay, well, she's going to trade his son for her daughter, right? Anyways, so it is what it is. It kind of makes sense, right? In at least to her point of view. So she puts Oliver on the phone then, and we see Jude kind of lie to him a little bit, and Oliver thinks that Reese is Jude's friend, right? So, and then later on, he asked Jude if she's his girlfriend or something like that. So, that was kind of funny, and of course, Jude kind of plays into this, right? He's not, doesn't want to, get Oliver scared or anything, so he kind of just lies to him in this situation and kind of plays along with it and says, oh yeah, Reese is a friend and all this stuff, right? Just to keep him comfortable, because obviously if Oliver knew the truth, things would have maybe went a different way, right? So So he acts like everything's okay, right? He kind of lies to his son there. And Reese says they will meet tomorrow, right? So she says they're going to do a big trade. They're going to do this, big meeting. And she wants her daughter by tomorrow. So Jude agrees, and then he gets off the phone, and he's still tracking Oliver's phone. So this was interesting. I'm not exactly sure what Jude was going to do. Like, he got off the phone with Reese here, and Reese called him from Oliver's phone. And so he's tracking Oliver's phone as they're on the call. I don't know, if he really thought that Reese was going to be there with Oliver when he found the phone. I don't know. I just felt like it was so obvious that he would be gone. But anyway, so he tracks down the phone in this car, and of course they're both gone. And they left pretty, quite a long time ago, right? So he wasn't really close. But then the intro plays, and I don't know, the intro for this, it's literally just like a 10-second little thing that where we see the water kind of coming up, and then the crossing comes up. Other shows, they actually have an intro that's a minute long, right? For example, Westworld, I mean, it's almost 2 minutes long, that intro. But yeah, so I don't know, I just noticed that, right? Nothing, not negative, not a positive. I just wanted to point that out. Some shows do decide to kind of go with an opening theme here, and The Deuce on HBO as well. That was a really long one. That was 2 minutes long, or maybe 2.5 minutes. Some shows decide to do that, but and then, some shows just, whatever, right? They kind of have the credits play out there in the first few minutes of the episode, right? So anyways, so then we see the creepy guy. Luke is his name. So we finally get his name. I don't think we got his name in last episode. He's kind of a mysterious character here. And so, with this recap, I'm just going to kind of group things together. So not necessarily as we saw them in the episode, but sort of just talk about the storylines all together and kind of wrap it up, right? So that's where I'm going here with this. So yeah, Luke talks to Caleb about him being a past soldier, I would say, or a fighter, right, against Apex. So we know that about Caleb now. I think we learned that a little bit earlier, but it was emphasized in the scene again. And then he asks him if he's seen Hannah, and it's that is just creepy, man. I mean, this Luke guy's looking for her now, and he can't find her. And Caleb's a little bit suspicious at this at the time, I think. He's like, why would he be looking for Hannah? You know what I mean? So, he gets a little suspicious here, and then later on in the episode, we see Caleb, he stops Hannah from going after Luke with her knife that she made in her cabin. We see this, I think we see 3 times where they quickly go back to her and she's sharpening the knife, and then we go back to something else. So that was really cool the way they did that. And then at the sort of later in the episode here, we saw everything kind of play out from that, right? So she's got this knife now. She's about to go and attack him. And Caleb stops her and, I don't think so. All right. So, he didn't want anything to happen there. And he says to her that they need to act civilized in order to get out of there, right? So they haven't want any chance of getting out of there. Probably Hannah killing Luke is probably not going to help them, right? It's going to bring all of them down, right? It's not just, Hannah. So, he's thinking about the whole group here. Again, I mean, that's, Caleb's thing to do, right? Like I've been saying, he's basically the leader now, right? Of this, of the survivors, and I think he's kind of taken on that role, and really, well, and even in this episode, I mean, he really takes on that leadership role, right? We see it. So, anyways, yeah, so Hannah was about to at least attack Luke. I don't know if, she would have been successful in killing him, but with the knife, I mean, Luke would have been unarmed. I don't know, maybe, right? Maybe. Who knows what happens? But anyways, then Hannah tells him that Luke has threatened her. So she finally comes clean and tells someone about it. I was actually surprised that she would. I mean, I thought she was still going to be hesitant here, but she does. So she comes clean then with Caleb, and then she also tells him about working for Apex. So this was big too, and of course we know that Caleb was, a former, fighter against collaborators just like her. And in this moment, she's even, telling him that she was a collaborator openly. So this was a big scene for Hannah, right? So she gave them information only because they picked her dad up and then cut off his hand in front of her and threatened to kill him if she didn't help him. Or, sorry, help the Apex. So, I mean, that's a tough situation. And I think Caleb is understanding at this too. Because, Hannah then also says she did what she had to survive, right? And Caleb, I think, understands this. I mean, he has a hate for anything Apex, right? And we know that. We know his past with that, but I think he understands where Hannah's coming from here, how they threatened her, and she really had no choice, and she had to help them, right? I mean, it would be different if, she just chose openly that, oh yeah, I'm going to go work with Apex now because I like them better, whatever, right? Obviously, it would have been different, and Caleb recognizes that, of course. And yeah, so, of course, he was against collaborators just like her, but he decides not to do anything. So, yeah. He doesn't do anything to her. We of course get that suspense. It's like, is he gonna do something? No, you kind of know that he's not gonna do anything. But anyways, so then he asks if he had put his hands on her. So this is where it gets serious here, and Caleb is serious about this too. Really, really serious, as we see later in the episode. So he asks, So if he asks if Luke has put his hands on her, and then Hannah says, "I love this line." She says, "I wasn't going to let it get that far." That is just a badass line right there. And honestly, with this line and this whole scene, they're kind of leading us up before this that she's, kind of a vulnerable girl, right? And that she, isn't really a fighter and whatever, and we, automatically feel sorry for her, right? Because of that, because this Luke guy is just, saying, like, I own you, and harassing her, right? And I would say maybe even assaulting her, right? Grabbing her on the shoulder, whatever, but not, nothing sexually yet. Maybe it may escalate to that, who knows, right? But yeah, so she's not as vulnerable as we may have thought, maybe, but she's actually a really strong character, or at least displayed in this scene, right? I wouldn't have let it get that far. I just love that line. So that's really awesome, and of course that's some more development for Hannah, and of course Caleb kind of solves this issue a little bit later in the episode. So we get the stuff with Marshall. I felt like this was kind of important, but we didn't really get any breakthroughs with Marshall. Like, he's kind of just, looking to find Hannah, right? That's pretty much the whole thing of this, and he basically fails, pretty much by the end of the episode he fails. But anyways, so he's looking to find where Hannah's located, right? And he finds out where they could be staying on the map. So him and his friend are in that, trailer, right? Of course we get the idea Marshall's not, the best guy. And then he goes to see Nestor at the police station. I love this scene here. And Nestor's like, I don't know, I found this kind of funny, but I felt like Nestor was trying to be serious as well. But I just got it as funny. I just think, like, every time I see his face, I don't know. He just seems like a funny guy. He seems like a comedian, the actor, playing him. So, anyways, so Marshall goes to see him, and he wants him to get Hannah for him. And it's like, why would you go and ask that, right? And so Nestor just says, "Leave now before I tase you," right? So, I don't know. I just thought it was kind of funny, right? Kind of a shot back at Marshall, right? For such a ridiculous ask here. But anyway, so then Marshall kind of takes it into his own hands, right? So him and his friend decide that they're going to fly a drone over the camp in order to find Hannah and deliver the cell phone that's kind of hanging on there. That's the whole plan, right? So then they'll drop the phone in so then that she can call him, and then they can talk, presumably, right, about, anything. And also I'd like to point out here that Marshall seems like he's already attached to her, even though they just met, right? So I felt like that's very interesting. He's already feeling, an attachment or feelings for her when they literally only met for, 10, 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, right? And his friend even questions it. It's like, you guys just met. Like, what's going on, right? So obviously I think we see that something else is in play here and not just, what's going on right now in the present. So anyways, so then the phone drops on the ground. This was just a funny scene. The drone, they start flying up, and then an eagle comes, and he just, barrels into the drone, right? And the drone just drops the phone. So they fail, right? Phone doesn't get to her, but it does hit the ground and someone else picks it up, and of course later on we find that it was Caleb. So then Marshall is in a restaurant towards the end of the episode there, and he gets a call from Hannah, right? So he's like all excited, all of a sudden he's with this other girl, and he's like just ditches her, right? He just walks away. He's like, Hannah, right? And it even says her name on the phone, right? He would have programmed that in. But it's Caleb. It's not Hannah, right? So he answers. He's like, Hannah, is this you? And then Caleb says, who the hell is this? Like, trying to figure out who the hell is voting and, why this vote is just on the ground in the camp. But anyway, so we'll see where that goes. That's just about where it ends for Marshall in this episode. Again, like I said, not a lot of stuff here. Some throwaway scenes, in my opinion, for Marshall in this episode. Maybe I missed something. Nope. Please let me know, of course. But That's about it. So, who the hell is this? I love that. Caleb just being frank with him, right? He's like, who the hell is this? Like, trying to figure it out. So we see that Jude comes to the roadblock. This was awesome. I mean, I just love this. So this was actually like at the very beginning of the episode here. So the agents won't let him in, right? So there's like, you don't have the clearance, whatever. So he just drives through, right? Breaking the gate. That was awesome, right? And you get the idea that he's wanted to do that for a while. So he's kind of used the excuse of, my son's been kidnapped, so I'm gonna do this now, right? I'm gonna drive through the gates and kind of get back at these guys. Because I think, he's definitely wanted to do that for a while, so he finally, gets the chance to do it, and he gets caught right away, right? He gets into the base there, and he gets caught pretty fast. And he's handcuffed and everything, right? So that was kind of funny, seeing him kind of fail there. But then Emma shows up and kind of saves him, right? She's like, oh, no, it's just the sheriff, right? Whatever. And I found that kind of funny, too. Like, he drives his sheriff truck in, and they all, like, freak out and, go to, get him and handcuff him. And I'm like, it's the sheriff. Like, I get that he doesn't have the clearance or whatever, but, like, really? If he's kind of a fellow cop, like, I don't know. I guess Homeland's obviously different than, a town sheriff. But anyways, so then Jude tells her he needs her help, right? And he tells her that Reese has took his son. So he comes clean to her finally, right? And an important thing is he asks for her help. And then Emma addresses this right away. She's like, "Oh, just like I needed your help last episode and you didn't give it to me. You shooed me away. Well, why would I help you now, right?" So this relationship between Jude and Emma is just like really really painful, right? They kind of just both turn the other cheek on each other, right? Kind of just ignoring each other, not trying to talk to each other. And I think Jude's kind of started that as well, mainly. And now he wants Emma's help, and she's like, no, I'm not helping you, right? Like, it just kind of goes back and forth. And then he also reveals that she is Leia's mother. So that's a big thing as well, and Emma obviously didn't know that. So then Emma says that Leia isn't going anywhere, right? So she refuses to help him because, they can't move Leia, right? Because she's heavily contagious, and then she takes Jude into that little tent there where Leia's being kept. And obviously, they break even, a hole in the tent there, or the room there, and I mean, people could get this deadly disease, right? So obviously they can't move her. They can't, even Jude wants to get his son back. They just can't do it because it'd be risking so many other lives. So then Jude pleads his case to the doctor. Her name's Sophie, right? We met her last episode, to get her out, right? So he really wants to get Leia out. He honestly doesn't even really care at this point about the, contagious disease, right? He just wants his son back. And so he's kind of focused on this throughout the episode. So Jude then threatens to pierce the tent, right? The actual, like, lining in between Leia and the outside, in order for the doctor to do what he wants, right? In order for Sophie to do what he wants. So, I mean, Jude's he actually goes too far, I would say, in this episode, by doing things like this. I mean, being a sheriff, I mean, that's not really a thing a sheriff would do, right? And kind of take those, actions, but it's to save his son, right? That's the one thing, his probably his overall weakness, right, is his son. So, I mean, he's going to do anything to protect him, and we really see that in this episode. So anyways, Sophie then rides with him to meet Reese, right? As she could be the key to curing Leia. That's what, at least Sophie says. And then they get sent to the meeting location. And then, of course, they have that meet later in the episode. So, yeah, that was, interesting stuff there. I just really think it showed, how far Jude would go, to get his son back, obviously, right? And I feel like, any father would do the stuff that Jude did in this episode. I feel like maybe even some fathers may even go farther, right? I mean, like, that's a big deal. But anyways, then we see this was a really interesting storyline here, and of course this comes back at the very end of the episode with that big cliffhanger. But Paul. So we get introduced to this Paul guy. We've seen him before, but I don't even think we got a name from him. So we have a name. So Paul now. So he asked one of the agents to find a woman for him and says that the woman will pay him handsomely if he does. That was kind of funny. I like that scene. So he's kind of like bribing this guy, right, to run like a facial scan on this woman that he presumably knows. So of course the agent goes to Emma right away, and he kind of tells on him, right. So Emma then confronts Paul about it later, wonders who the woman is, right? She's like, who is this? How do you know someone, in the present, right? And Paul tells her that it's his wife. So this was a big twist here in the episode. And then he says that she left earlier, and that means it was an earlier migration, right? It kind of confirms what Emma has thought, right? And also confirms that Thomas was lying to her as well. I mean, that wasn't addressed in this episode, but that's obvious as well. So then she ends up running the picture of Paul's wife afterwards, and I think she kind of feels for him, right? She kind of wants to help him out. And also, I think she's curious about the earlier migration. So hopefully if she finds her, she's going to get some answers, right? So I think there's kind of, two ways to that. But anyway, so then she thinks twice, though, when she's about to run the name, because she remembers that Craig is probably monitoring her. And this is another thing. It's like she's really, really, worrying about Craig, about her bosses finding out what she's doing. And she's really kind of, freaking out here, right? that they're kind of looking over her shoulder at all times. So anyway, so then she goes through a protected line and of course, gets the scan done for her. So we see Caleb confronts Luke. This is probably my favorite scene of the episode here. I don't know, maybe next to the last scene of the episode, but I just really love this. This was an awesome scene. Luke walks into his cabin, right? And this was like identical to the way that Luke was sitting in Hannah's cabin, so I like that as well. So then Caleb says right away, he's like, listen, I'm going to need you to leave Hannah alone, right? And Luke tries to argue with him, and it's like, what, what are you saying? It doesn't really make sense what he's saying at all. I mean, he's saying, oh, well, she was an Apex collaborator, so, I have to get back at her and whatever, right? But Caleb doesn't budge, right? He says, no. And he says, as long as I'm here, she gets to walk around, right? So he's kind of defending her, right? Standing up and threatening Luke, actually, right, in this scene as well. And he says if he ever steps to her again, there won't be another conversation between the two of them, right? It'll be a fight. So really, really crazy stuff. And then I love this quote from Luke, or not quote, but line from Luke here, who says, who made you the king of the camp, right? And it's like, that's a good question. Like, they never really had a vote, they never really recognized Caleb as a leader, but he's kind of made himself out to be one, right, of the people. So I really like this, that Luke kind of questions this, and Caleb just says, I did, right? I made myself the leader, and that's kind of true, right? I mean, he did. Like, he kind of took on that role, and I would say he's doing a good job at it, right? But he kind of took on that role himself, right? He wasn't elected or voted or anything, right? So I really like that. And then Caleb, puts him in a headlock, right? And all of a sudden, threatens to kill him because he's not sensing that Luke's getting it, right? Like, he really doesn't think so. So he's threatening him and, says, I can end this right now if you want. And then, Luke, of course, kind of taps out. He's like, okay, like he finally agrees with him. So Hannah, it sounds like, will be left alone now thanks to Caleb. And I just love this scene. I love that, to see Caleb stand up for Hannah and confront this creepy Luke guy, right? He definitely deserved what was coming to him. Don't get me wrong. So anyways, then we get to Jude and Sophie meet with Reese at the meeting spot. So this was a short-lived meeting. They kind of hyped it up the whole episode here, and they kind of, kept saying, oh, we're going to this meeting. Tomorrow's the meeting. Half an hour to the meeting. Okay, we're going to meet Reese now. Like, you know what I mean? And it ended up kind of being anticlimactic. Not much happened. There was no, violence or action, whatever. So they tell Reese that they did everything they could, right, to get her out, right? And then he says, Jude says, hurting my son is not going to save Leia, right? So they tell her, of course, that Leia is sick, that she has this disease. They can't move her, right? They can't get her to Reese. So Sophie offers to help create the treatment and take it back to Leia, and she says she will stay with Reese if she lets Oliver go. So Sophie's kind of, coming through here for Jude, and pretty much everyone, right, willing to stay with Reese. I think she's also just interested in the whole, cure thing anyways. So she's going to stay with Reese, get the treatment, hopefully get that back to Leia so she's good enough to travel, and then, presumably Reese would take her then. So yeah, very, very interesting there. And then, of course, we see Jude at the end of the episode here. He goes back home, and Oliver is there safe and sound. Then, they just had kind of a nice father-son bonding scene there at the end. I didn't really think that she was ever going to hurt him, though. I never really got that feeling throughout the episode where I was like, wow, is Oliver going to be okay? I never really thought that in the episode. I just feel like they kind of, they added suspense, but, I never really thought at any point that she was actually going to hurt him, especially because she has her own daughter, right? So she knows how that would feel. She can relate to that. So I think that's another reason why she didn't do it. So then, the very end of the episode here, the last 2 or 3 minutes of the episode, this was insane. So Emma finds the woman's house and knocks on the door. So this is obviously Paul's wife, right? So Emma shows her a picture of Paul, and she obviously knows him, right? So she claims, she's like, oh, that's my husband, right? So she comes clean, right? She tells the truth that is her husband. And then Emma comes in, asks her a few questions, right? She wants to know more about it, of course, because, how does this make sense, right? Like, Emma's trying to get answers. So then the woman she says that Paul is in a cult, not from the future. And it's like, really? Us viewers kind of know, there's no way that's real, right? Because at first that's what they thought it was, too. They thought it was a cult who all, committed suicide or something like that. That's who the people who watched on the beach. But, of course, Emma has been told by pretty much everyone that survived that they're from the future. So hearing this from one woman, really? I don't think Emma's buying this, right? And then, of course, is she lying lying to cover it up, right? And probably, right? There's something here that she doesn't want Emma to know, and of course we see that later in the episode. So for sure, so she's lying to her and whatever. So then Emma asks for some pictures, and so the woman kind of walks away. And then Emma, kind of gets up. She's just, looking at things in the house. And all of a sudden, she spots Craig, her boss, in the picture on the wall. So that was crazy stuff. Obviously, things are piecing together, right? So obviously, Craig was a part of this earlier migration that we learned from Thomas's interaction with him. So Craig was with this woman, right? They're both part of that earlier migration. So really crazy stuff here. So Emma may even be putting things together at this point, but suddenly the woman comes back and shoots Emma from behind. And I'm not exactly sure where she took it. I think it was in the chest, in the shoulder maybe. So it's not, a lethal bullet wound, I don't think, or a lethal shot. But definitely, crazy stuff, right? And I think if she wanted her dead, I think she would have killed her. I don't think Emma is going to die from this early on in the show. I just don't see it. But it's possible, maybe. But I don't think she's going to die. But obviously, something's going to come from this. So anyway, so she collapses to the floor, and that is how the episode ends. So another great cliffhanger, and I did not expect that at all, I have to say. I thought it was just going to end with zooming in on Craig, but no, we got Emma getting shot and ending up on the floor, kind of bleeding out there. So really, really crazy stuff, and a really crazy way to end the episode this week. Okay, so in terms of a rating for this episode, I'm going to give it a 4.4 out of 5. Only because I gave last week's episode a 4.5 out of 5. I thought this episode was good, like I said before, but I didn't think it was quite as good as last week, so I really couldn't give it the same rating. But I really did like last week's, the action and all that stuff with Reese, kind of getting, back to the town finally, after all those men were kind of chasing her down. And she kills the guy, right? Puts him on the hood of the car there at the end of the episode. So, yeah, that one was good. But this one was also good. We got a lot of answers, like I said at the beginning. And just a lot of stuff happened. So, one thing I really like to point out here, though, and in this episode I think it's very apparent, is I'm really loving all the subplots right now, right? There are so many subplots going on. And it's not... I don't think that this show... It's one of those shows where they introduce a subplot, okay, whatever. They give 3 minutes to it in, one episode. And then eventually, later in the season, it becomes the, main plot. And all of a sudden, it's a huge focus on it. And it's well, we've only seen about 3 minutes an episode of this so far. And all of a sudden, you're making this a full-blown story. But this show is doing such a good job with this, keeping them kind of separate. Of course, the main plot, the main story here that's being told is that there's survivors from the future that have migrated here, right? And then there's so many other subplots going on. So, and this is also what I want to say as well, within the camp and outside the camp. They're doing a really good job of that. So yes, we're getting the story with Jude, right? And all that stuff going on. And Reese, I would say, is outside of the camp too. But then we also get the inner storylines like Hannah and Luke, right? With Caleb and Luke. We got Caleb and Thomas last episode. and even hi, Rebecca, right? Rebecca and Sophie, kind of talking it out last episode. So they are really doing a good job with not forgetting about the camp, right? There are survivors, there are characters in the camp right now, even though maybe that's not the main focus of the story, right? Maybe that's not the main concern. They're still doing a good job with involving those characters and creating meaningful scenes here, with some really, good dialogue back and forth between these survivors. So I think that's a very important part of the show, and I think that they did that well with the 4400 series as well, which I often compare to this one. They really did a good job with that as well, with following the survivors a little bit, as well as the ones who are trying to figure out what has happened, right? So really good job with that. I never really felt like Oliver was going to get hurt. I said this earlier, but I don't know. I just felt like that was a little bit of a negative for this episode. They kind of kept emphasizing that, oh, Reese took her, he's kidnapped and whatever. But I don't know. I just felt like they didn't do a good enough job in really showing that she was ever going to hurt Oliver. I didn't believe it. I didn't buy it. But it is what it is. Maybe they weren't trying to show that, but I don't know. They just kept emphasizing it, so that's what I thought. Another great cliffhanger, right, of this episode. And I will say, I do want to comment on this because this is kind of what makes shows binge-worthy, you know what I mean? A lot of binge-worthy shows, and these are the shows I'm talking about where you watch them in like 2 days, right? Like a Netflix original, right? You get 10 episodes, released all at once, and you want to watch it in 2 days. So these type of shows always, okay, they have a pretty good episode, right? You kind of hooked in, at least till you watch the end, right? They hook you in at least until the end of the episode, and then the end of the episode always ends on a big cliffhanger, just like this one, that makes you watch that next episode, that makes you you're sitting on the couch, and makes you not get up, and grab the remote and stop, playing, because Netflix just, auto plays, of course. So yeah, if you know what I mean there, right? That's what I mean. So I think the show's doing a great job with that, and I think it's going to be really binge worthy when the whole season is finished here. I think a lot of people are going to really like this show, to binge watch. You just keep watching episodes constantly. So really good job with that, and I think having a cliffhanger each week, I mean, that brings people back next week, right, as well. So I really think that's a great job, and we'll have to, of course, see what happens with Emma, and is she okay, right? Is she going to survive this gunshot? So very good there. Favorite character for this one is going to be Caleb. I just love the scene, him getting involved with Luke here, and Hannah standing up for her. I really enjoyed that. And I felt like, I think we're getting more of his character, but I think we're going to see even more of it, in future episodes. I think they're going to really emphasize him as being kind of like the main survivor that we're focusing on. So I really like that so far, and I really like his character. He's just, fearless, right? Total badass, as well, just kind of taking out Luke easily here. Defending Hannah, doing the right thing. He seems like a really moral guy so far. So yeah, really, and he's a great leader too so far that we've seen for the people as a whole. So really great stuff there. And the actor who plays him is Marquise Harris. I think it's Marquise. And he's been in Animal Kingdom, Bones, and Vice Principals on HBO. So I haven't seen Animal Kingdom. I haven't seen Bones. I saw the first few episodes of Vice Principals just because I love Danny McBride, right? Eastbound and Down. I love that series. But yeah, no, I don't think I made it past episode 3 or 4 in that. But yeah, so, he's had a few minor roles. But if this show really takes off, I think, that's going to be his biggest role. And he's really doing a great job. That's another thing that I see with this show is, some of these actors in the cast, they aren't really, standout actors, household names, right, per se, that you would know, but they're all doing such a good job so far, I feel. There really isn't one, person that you can kind of point out who, oh, well, his performance isn't that good. Like, they're really all doing a good job right now, and that's what's helping this show move forward, right? Because bad acting just, it's, especially in TV shows like this one, where the concept is really important and all that stuff, and they're kind of pushing the story pretty fast, bad acting just slows it down and makes it really boring, so, and unenjoyable, right? So anyways, Marquise Harris there with his character Caleb, doing a really great job. But anyways, I'll just about do for the review this week. Again, I apologize for this one being a day late, or 2 days late now. next week it should be back on schedule, when I'm all caught up here. But anyways, guys, again, thank you so much for watching this review, and thank you so much for the recent support on the channel and even on this series. The reviews for this series have been doing awesome, so I really, really appreciate that. And please continue commenting, liking the videos, right? Maybe even sharing it with your friends who also watch the show. Yeah, so anything like that is really, really appreciated. But anyways, again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week for episode 5 of The Crossing.